Welcome everyone. Shannan Gove here, co-founder of Rosterfy. Thanks for joining us today. A short and sharp webinar with Golf Australia, and we have with us Claudia Marazita, who heads up the workforce engagement across Golf Australia, and Hayley Gorman, who's a volunteer engagement coordinator. So these are the two leading the charge. I know there's a broader team, but we've got the specialist here talking us through their journey, but trying to create, ultimately, in my eyes, Claudia, they're one of the best volunteer engagement programs across sport, especially as a federation level, which is challenging. And so lots of learning here to share with other sports and organisations going through a similar journey. So welcome, guys.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, welcome. All right, so I'll go through a bit of an agenda about some key things we're going to go through. Like I said, short and sharp. We'll stick to probably roughly half an hour today for time. And as you'll see in one of the last slides, for those listening, Claudia and Hayley are really open to speaking with people about their experience. And so please do follow up after this if you want to have any further questions and ask them directly. I think it's always helpful to speak to others that are going through similar challenges. So we'll crack straight into it. So here's the overview of what we want to cover today. So look, a quick overview of both Rosterfy and Golf Australia and PGA of Australia's volunteer program. Number two, making golf accessible to all. So I think that's such a critical one, in particular in the world of golf, but it's across all sport, and volunteer programs we're seeing around the world, no matter the vertical or industry they're working in, is about recruiting the next generation of volunteers is so critical. Three, about that journey with Rosterfy and how we've helped Golf Australia and PGA of Australia. And then the last one there about what does volunteering look like for Golf Australia and PGA of Australia in the future? You've got two great people here to talk about, I guess, they're working on building the foundation right now and have seen success over the last period. And now, because of that, are able to have the eye for the future about where's this program going, which I find really inspiring in my world in terms of what I see around the world. But I just think it's a credit, especially to Claudia from the beginning, to get this program right, to now be able to have the freedom to see how we're going to grow this and make such a bigger impact with the program to come. Okay, so I'll a quick overview of Rosterfy for those that aren't aware of us and the work we do. So basically, look, for us, Rosterfy, we want to be the very best in the world at managing large-scale workforce programs in a single platform. So from a technology perspective, how do we help automate a lot of the processes that are very manual-based at the moment? We've now delivered over 100 million hours of volunteering around the world across 35 countries. And for us, volunteering is really important. I think this is critical that a lot of our team at Rosterfy are out volunteering every day around the world, because you get to meet volunteers, find out what's important, you get to meet clients and understand what other challenges they're facing. And here's just a quick sample of some of the customers we work with around the world over the last 8 years or so. We work with a lot of different golf organizations around the world, but across America, the last 8 Super Bowls, a lot of Formula Ones, Formula E, like a lot of these major events you come accustomed to. You may not know Rosterfy is there because it's a white label platform, but we are the system behind volunteering, in particular in this sports and events world. Okay, so that's very briefly on us. Now I might hand over to the team here. Who wants to grab this one, Hayley or Claudia, to give the overview?
I'll jump in, Shan, and welcome to everyone listening on demand. Hayley and I are really excited to be here and talk you through our experiences and what our volunteering program looks like in golf. Again, what Shan said around how Rosterfy has supported us and how we're going to take things to the next level over the next 12 months and beyond. So PGA and Golf Australia, we work together. We have a volunteering program that sees volunteers volunteer across our major events, so our Australian PGA Championships, our Australian Open. We've got thousands of volunteers supporting golf clubs across the country in the form of board members, general club volunteers. We have a team of tournament support staff and referees who supported our smaller events. And we've also got a large contingent of what we call community and coaches or national program deliverers to support people learning the game of golf. So fundamentally across the board, in terms of volunteering numbers in golf, wholeheartedly, we've got about 30,000 people but you can see some of the stats along the bottom there around specifically where our volunteers are sitting in Rosterfy and where we've been able to track and make progress over nearly 2 years now that we've been utilising the system. So we're at almost 5,000 volunteers in under 3 years, which is great, and that's exponentially increased. We had 1,500 volunteers in our system this time last year, so it's almost tripled, which is fantastic. For our last tournament season, we had an average of 3 shifts attended by each volunteer who was rostered. We had over 1,600 volunteers across our major events volunteering last year, and to date we've been able to advertise 43 events on Rosterfy, and it's quite exciting that at the time that we're recording this webinar, we're currently in tournament week for our Australian PGA Championships, and we've got our Australian Open next week. We will see almost 900 volunteers volunteer next week in Victoria at Kingston Heath Golf Club and Victoria Golf Club, which has increased again from our 670 or so last year in Sydney. So we're only at the tip of the iceberg, and we can't wait to see how our volunteer program can keep growing in golf.
Yeah, thank you. The one thing there's so many parts of your program that I love, but one reference point of, I think it was this year, Claudia, of yes, there's the major events, right, that you do, but there's also so many other events that are involved with golf around the country, if it's national champs or state champs of smaller clubs, yes, potentially just in need of volunteers, that you have the big names, right? They're always going to draw the attraction of people that love golf to volunteer, but it's the second tier in a way that you're also able to support now because you have that centralized approach. Can you just touch on that quickly, Claudia? Because I think that's so important when we talk about sort of legacy of major events that are hosted by these big sports and how they can impact those that maybe don't have the resources or funds as well.
Yeah, definitely. So at this point in time, and Hayley will touch on this later on around, how the data for us has been so valuable, but we're 86% of our, 5,000 or so volunteers are members of our golf clubs, our affiliated golf clubs. So there is a strong contingent there. Once we get more of them in the system, we'll be able to connect them better. We'll be able to connect them to other local golf clubs. And our vision going forward is to actually give our local golf clubs the opportunity to advertise their own volunteering opportunities on the system. So we may have a golf club, say, in the northern area of South Australia, who's looking for a worker bee to contribute, say, 2 days a week at their golf club. We've had two major events now in South Australia, so we have quite a large pool of volunteers who we can actually target and say that a particular golf club in that northern part of the state, they've got an opportunity, and it's doesn't necessarily need to be someone who's a member of that golf club. It might be someone who's a member of a neighbouring golf club, or again, our highest point in terms of what we're trying to reach is that we've got people who would just love volunteering, who would be more than happy to help out. Even if they don't play golf. So that's sort of where we want to get to with our volunteering program with Rosterfy's help.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, awesome. No worries. All right. So I guess, Claudia, if we rewind a couple of years when you and I first caught up and Damien and the team, numerous challenges and it's no one's immune, right? But do you want to just talk through, I guess, perhaps some of these, or perhaps Hayley here?
Yeah, definitely. I'm happy to pick this one up, Shannon, and then I'll pass over to Hayley. It was only, again, 2 years ago or so that we were still quite fragmented in terms of how we were managing our event volunteers. We didn't know anything about our volunteer contingent that we had in our workforce in Australia. We were heavily relying on manual processes and spreadsheets. So all our rostering for our major tournaments was done manually. You can see that, average age of our volunteers is over 60, who are all almost, again, traditional golf enthusiasts. And we saw a need for us to be able to become more flexible and more tech savvy and really take golf into the 21st century when it comes to tech. And it's been challenging at times because we've had long-standing volunteers who have known what they're doing for so long, and they've said, well, why are we needing to change this for? Why break something if it shouldn't be fixed type mentality. And for us, it's actually selling them the value proposition about how this is going to grow the volunteer program for golf going forward. It's going to make things easier for them. It's going to reduce the manual processes that they need to pick up to manage those volunteers, especially at those major tournaments. And we're probably now at a point where we've had, trying to bring people along the journey, and they're seeing the value, because with any change, it's going to be difficult. It's never going to be smooth sailing. When you've gone from, pen and paper to going online for anything, it's always going to be a challenge. But for us, it's the key message has been for us to keep communicating and taking on feedback from those lead volunteers, but also having an avenue for us to be able to support those long-standing volunteers who may have issues with tech. So, we've got a volunteer inbox that we manage, which is linked to the help function on Rosterfy. They can still pick up the phone to us to speak to us if they are having any trouble. We've created quick reference guides and training modules to support them through this transition period. So we say we're getting 1% better every day, but this is quite common across any major change that anyone would have in any industry.
Yeah, I love it. The 1% better every day is so true in these evolutions, isn't it? It's not about being 100% better immediately, is it? This is a journey that you need to go through.
Yes.
And I think from the outside looking in, a big challenge I saw at the start was around, and I hope you don't mind me saying, but the tail wagging the dog. It was so challenging for you when the really established volunteers at the golf club saying, like, this is the way it operates, Claudia, sorry, but this is kind of the way it's got to go. And you guys really lacked a bit of that control in a sense back then, because you were really open to this, because it's kind of that, or, you're going to really struggle to deliver the events.
Yes.
And I guess what I've seen is a transition of when now golf as a whole, as a central body, are in control of the program and building this and building your capacity and capability around the country, so that you can sort of say, hey, like, I know this is a change process, guys, but trust us, and it's our responsibility as a sport to take you on this journey. And I think, that's what I've been most proud. Sounds silly,
and I think,
but
I mean,
I love it.
The proof's in the pudding. Our board and management saw the value of having someone like Hayley come in and really lead and take our volunteering program to the next level. So it's really exciting, and we're only just getting started.
Yeah, I love it. All right, so I guess now Rosterfy is a part of the solution. I want to be clear on this. Like, your team are the ones that have done the hard work, and we are one piece of this. But around the solution, sort of, it's been a journey. It's good to see graphs like this, I suppose. But I might let you guys talk to this slide.
Yeah, so really exciting. We're into our third tournament season of using Rosterfy. So we can see the progression of how we've used it season on season, and probably our gold standard event is our Vic Open, which, fortunate for the event, it is later in the season, being in Feb. So we're sort of able to trial run a few different things at other events before we get to the Vic Open. But we're rolling into our third one using Rosterfy, and we can see where we've come from, where in 2023, we only used it for EOIs and everything else was done pretty manually. But then for the 2024, we've implemented a lot of other things like groups and rostering. It was still a lot of manual work for our volunteer management team on the back end with the manual rostering themselves, but we're still using it to communicate to the volunteers via email and SMS, as well as using the check-in and the post-event feedback. And then very excitingly this year, we've only launched the event 15 days ago, but we've gone away with the EOIs completely, and we're just opening up all of our shifts for self-selection for the volunteers. So we've purely gone out, advertised it to all of our volunteers in the system, and opened up all the shifts. And since we opened it 15 days ago, we've had over 70% of our shifts actually confirmed. And the event is still over 2 months away. So within 2 weeks, that's 70%. So you can see an awesome uptake, even in those first 2 days. The first 48 hours of launching the event to then looking at it again, we had 567 shifts, like registration for shifts. So you can see really every year we're getting better and we're implementing better things each year. And it's just making it easier for the volunteer management team, less time for us to have to go in and manually do stuff. And it also empowers the volunteers themselves to select what they want to do.
Correct. Yeah, That one makes me smile a lot, Claudia, from where we were 2 years ago about, and I think if we break it down most simply, a lot of sports around the world are probably doing it in two stages, right? They're capturing the expression, and then they are then needing to go into a hell of a lot of work in spreadsheets and things to then do that shift allocation, calling John and Jeff, oh, what would you like to do? Oh, I want to work with Susie on this. And that becomes a lot of work. And this is, Claudia, if it's not broken, don't fix it. You don't realize it was broken until you realize that there's a better way. Claudia, I might get you to speak to that process of going, oh, wow, it was broken now in hindsight. What's your thoughts?
It's been amazing, and I think, again, for people that have been volunteering for so long, especially in our sport, it's until you've got the opportunity to uncover that there is an easier way to do things, and it's just us building, again, that trust and those relationships with our volunteer management teams and our volunteers. But our volunteer coordinator for the event, she was involved last year and in 2023. And to be fair, last year she was still a little bit hesitant because she'd been doing the Vic Open for 8 years or so. And it seems as though in the last 2 weeks she's been so excited that everything's been taken off her plate. She's been just making sure she's confirming different people. She's able to look into people's profiles. She's so familiar with the event and so familiar with some of the names that she knows that, John Smith has been a Walker scorer at the Vic Open for 5 years, so she'll lock him in straight away once he's applied. But the fact that she's not now actually having to go through any EOIs and just ticking off whether she wants people in certain spots has been great. And to be fair, we pushed out just before that 2 week period of when we opened up shifts to our database. We haven't done any further pushes at this point in time. So we'll see how we go. Our Australian Open is in Victoria this year. So it's likely that, as you would know, Shannon, and I'm sure others watching this webinar, once a volunteer volunteers once, they're more inclined to volunteer again. So it's likely that we might do a push to those volunteers who are Victorian based who volunteered at the AO to see whether they want to continue and pick up some shifts for the Vic Open. But the fact that we've already had over 70% shifts confirmed within a 15-day period is genuinely extraordinary.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the natural pushback, right, from those administrators that have been there for a long time about technology is going, oh, but I know John and I need to personalize this. It won't be as personal if there's a system in the way. And then I guess the outcome actually is almost the reverse by going, because the system is there automating all the manual work you previously were spending, you didn't realize that you weren't personalizing as much as you could have been, because for every hour you're spending personalizing, you weren't spending an hour in a spreadsheet trying to manage something. That's again, it's not broke, don't fix it. It was broken, and I think that's the thing, that the evolution, I suppose, that golf's been through, which has been amazing. So we'll keep moving, understanding your data. I think this is, it seems so obvious, right, doesn't it, Claudia? But sometimes it's quite a low base that we're coming from, especially in volunteering. I don't know, Hayley, do you want to grab this one, or Claudia?
Yeah. So previously to having Rosterfy in, our data and our knowledge of our volunteers was with individual clubs, the different events. We didn't have one centralized place that held all of our data. We didn't know anything about our volunteers at all, let alone actually having the actual information, because sometimes an event happened and they threw their spreadsheets in the bin, or it's put away in some filing cabinet. But since actually having Rosterfy now, we're actually able to understand who our workforce and who our volunteers are. We're able to ask how old they are, what their gender is, are they affiliated with a club, where in Australia are they located, as well as we can ask questions like if they're a community instructor, so we can delve into actually understanding who our volunteers are. And then, like what you were saying before, we're able to personalize what we want to tell them and what they then want to get out of our events and system.
Love it. Yeah. All right, we'll keep moving. A single identity for volunteers. I think this is to that point of personalisation, Hayley. Again, the previous state of volunteering in golf around Australia was that each club owned those relationships and those things, right? And then when you would try and get them, they're kind of like, hang on, this is my world. You'll get what I'm going to give you. You now have that central data set, which I think is just so incredible and so important for sports volunteer programs. Do you want to speak to this slide?
Yeah, I think again, Shannon, we're looking to take things to the next level around even getting again our committee members and our board members into the system. Because once we have a central point of identity for our volunteers, like Hayley had mentioned, we can communicate with them, we can understand them, and I think fundamentally for us, what's been really valuable is that we've been able to ask for their feedback like we never have been able to before. So we've been able to take on feedback from them, and make sure we're making changes which are going to make the program more attractive for them. And I'm sure that Hayley, I think, will pick this up later on today in the webinar, but rewarding volunteers for their contributions. When we have that single source of truth, we can actually understand how many hours they've done, how many events they've volunteered in, and we can make sure that we actually build out a robust and attractive reward and benefits program, which we're looking at uncovering and providing for our volunteers next year. So it just makes it so much easier for us to understand who everyone is by looking at one place.
Yep. And this is, again, this is your show, but one thing I'm extremely passionate about is especially for younger people wanting to get into golf, Claudia, if there is no single identity of these people, right? This young volunteer might have volunteered 3 or 4 times in the past, and then next year's event comes around, and if it was on spreadsheets and your administrator just left, and great, you've got a new administrator, but they don't know who that person is, then that person may not get a shift next year, or maybe in the car park out the back, and that might be where their journey stops with golf, right? And without knowing it, you've just stopped someone's journey that could have been the next CEO of Golf Australia because you didn't know who that person was and you weren't personalizing that experience about why are they there, what do they want to get out of it, what ticks the box of a great experience for them because of the information they've given you. And again, it's not broke, don't fix it. You didn't know that information, now you know it, and I think that's so critical about engaging volunteers and making sure that when they leave the Australian Open or whatever it might be, they go back to their family members or their golf club going, you know what, golf have nailed it this time. I really felt connected and I felt appreciated because they know who I am, and you're only going to get better and better each year with this. And I just think it's almost an unspoken thing in volunteering is having that central profile, single identity is so important.
Definitely, and our current vision around our workforce is that for people who are working or volunteering is that they choose golf. So we want to make golf not only a paid workforce destination but a volunteering destination. So definitely what you've said, Shan, resonates with us.
Yeah, lovely. And I think this feedback you said about capturing data now post every shift really from volunteers. But I'll let you talk to this one because this was a report you guys did. And you know what? We'll actually share this article that you wrote on your website, which I was surprised to see, about the feedback from volunteers, especially from a potentially an older demographic as well, right, that are resistant to change. It's amazing seeing this sort of information. Maybe Claudia, I don't know, any comments about this or any thoughts?
I think I'll let Hayley pick this up
Right.
in terms of volunteer experience for Vic Open because it's been a journey. Again, we've spoken about Vic Open being our flagship event, and you can see there the feedback's great. And this was from last year. Hopefully, we build on this for the year coming.
Yeah, so obviously the golf demographic is a bit older, but even with that older demographic, they are saying like 74% of them that did our post-event survey said that self-selecting their shifts was super easy, and that there have been reports of people saying they're not IT experts, but they find it super user-friendly, and they're looking forward to volunteering again, which is great for us to know that when we do take these next steps, like removing the EOI, they're open to it and they can do it.
Yeah, and for that event, Shan, last year, like we had 210 volunteers. We didn't have everyone do the post-event feedback survey. It was pretty good as a response rate though, and the average age was 67. So when you look at that as like the fact that people were strongly agreeing that it was super easy to self-select, which was never done before, is massive.
Yeah, absolutely, especially not having been done before. I think that's an important point. All right, and now empowering volunteers with training. I think this is the scalability of this, Claudia, is quite massive. Comment?
Yeah, definitely. I think Hayley's been heavily involved in taking this to the next level.
Yeah, so obviously coming in with a new system, there's volunteers that don't know what they're doing. So we've been able to implement a few different training modules and inductions into our system. So we've included our volunteer handbook as a bit of a general volunteer induction. So literally just uploading our handbook into the system, and they can scroll through it at their own time, get a feel and an understanding of what, as Golf Australia, we want out of our volunteers and what they're going to get themselves. And then we've got little introductions into using Rosterfy and little training modules and videos on how to self-select a shift. So little videos that they can watch to learn how to use the system a bit better and make it easier for them, and empowering them to be able to actually do it as well. And then for our events, we've been able to create inductions and volunteer guides, which we also just upload into the training system. So this allows us to track who's actually completed these inductions and who needs to do them, so we can send reminders and next steps, and then we can automate what groups and what events we're actually assigning these trainings to.
Yeah, lovely. And I think I always like to challenge Claudia, but a phase 2 of what I'd love to see here is tying this to reward and recognition, right? So how do you incentivize volunteers to complete their training and induction compared to going, I'll just turn up like I always have. What's the real reason that you're actually going to do something? If there's a nice to have at the end of it as well, it can be something to think about. So the next one here is around broadening the volunteer demographic, so critical for any sport, any volunteer program. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so as we said, we've got that older demographic, but we're aiming to have golf reflecting not only golf itself as a sport, but our volunteer base reflect society, which is slightly younger. It's very multicultural. It's very mixed gendered. We want that reflected in golf itself. So implementing a system like Rosterfy, where I want to say this as a Gen Z myself, we have a little bit more of an easier understanding of it. So it's trying to attract those volunteers. It's like what you said, it's not just pen and paper where we're forgetting volunteers. We're able to personalize it to people. We're able to market it to students who most likely have volunteered at other events and may have used it at other events before. So they come into it with a previous understanding of how to use the system, and it's more accessible to them to actually get them into shifts and into events and then coming back time after time.
For sure. I think what you guys do well is your partnership with Deakin University, but it's a good reference point of how you can engage with certain groups of your community within the broader group. So how do you get all those students volunteering together potentially, or how do you engage with them about having a certificate potentially that goes back to those students because, hey, they're students and this is really going to help them for their job, but we're a retired person. They don't really need a certificate maybe because they're retired. The personalization of that experience for different groups, I think, is so critical and something I've learned a lot about. Now, I said we're going to be short and sharp today. Hopefully we've stuck to that. But Hayley, Claudia, I might let you guys sort of do a bit of a wrap here and sort of how you'd like to engage with others that are perhaps facing similar challenges or thinking about the same sort of journey. And then I'll finish up after that.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Shannon. And for us, we're really keen on connecting with whether it's other sporting organisations, not-for-profits, etc., around your volunteering programs. I think we're all here because we want to support our volunteers and others in the community, and if we can all continue helping each other to make our volunteering programs attractive and retaining the volunteers that we've got, that's really important. I'll let Hayley wrap up in terms of from our end. She's there and contactable, and we would love to connect with others throughout different industries.
Yeah, no, of course, what Claudia said, essentially we're just super keen to connect with anyone and not only share our experiences, but also learn from other people's experiences. What are other people doing that we think is awesome and what we can implement into our programs and everything. So yeah, if anyone has any questions or wants to reach out for a chat, feel free to contact me. My email's on the screen. But yeah.
Lovely. Well, look, guys, thank you so much for your time today. I know this is amazing, the time you've given us when you've got so many big events starting next week and this week everywhere around the country. It's massive, but hopefully it goes to show that you're not as stressed out in spreadsheets as you once were. Probably a good sign of the times. So, look, thank you for those that are joining us today as well. Claudia, Hayley, thank you so much. And then for anyone wanting to get in touch with myself as well, please, there's my details there. Contact me anytime. And please do reach out to the team at Golf here, because they're, in my opinion, real leaders in this space, and they want to take this forward, challenge the ordinary. If it's not broke, don't fix it. They've been through this, so have a word to them and learn from their experience. So, yeah, once again, thank you, everyone, and hope everyone has a good day. Cheers.